Just to tell you that we'll be having two speakers and then an opportunity for questions. And then our next three speak. I'm not sure if it's three after that or two. I'm not sure, Amy, if you're speaking on behalf of Coed or if anyone else is.
I think it may just be Amy because
Yeah.
Nico's given her apologies.
Okay, no
She might be
problem.
late.
So we'll have the same thing in the second half with two speakers and then questions. So that's just a rundown there for you. We'll try and squeeze a break in about 10 to 5, and we're hoping to close just before 5:30. Okay, thank you, Zena. So over to you, Rod, if you're ready and willing.
Absolutely. My apologies to people. Somewhere on our computer system, there are lots of lovely pictures, but I just haven't had the time to sort it out. So my apologies. You don't have to look at me. You can sort of look out of the window and listen or whatever. We have a 50-acre site in northeast Wales in the heart of the Clwyddian Range area of outstanding natural beauty. The land is privately owned. It's just been transferred into a family trust. And when the family bought the woodland originally, their management plan was commonly, as is now, three management objectives: social, environmental, and economic. I'm not going to talk much about the last two, except to say in terms of the economic, the woodland generates something around about £45,000 a year in forestry products and somewhere in excess of 10,000 a year in non-forestry income for 50 acres of pretty grim woodland. And that's not bad. The environmental is the woodland is managed also for wildlife. There's a lot of habitat creation, a lot of habitat management. We're used by various organisations to run courses like the Wildlife Trust, Amphibian and Reptile Conservation. But we'll go back to the first one, which is the social. The management objective for the woodland is that the woodland should be enjoyed by as many people as possible up to the limit of what it can withstand without being degraded. And I have to remember that I'm not doing various other courses. I have to keep to the right script. There are lots of ways of managing a woodland that minimise negative impact from people, but that's a different topic. We started running courses in traditional crafts simply because the woodland management was generating a lot of timber. It was heavily overstocked, needed thinning, it was sycamore dominated, it had abandoned plantation sites that hadn't been thinned or managed. And in terms of the economic objective, we wanted to get as much income as possible from the thinning process. So we started making barbecue charcoal. And people asked us to run courses on that, which we did. And then people on those courses, without knowing what they were unleashing, asked us to run other courses. We had a large unused sheep shed because the sheep had gone for various reasons. And I don't mean escaped through the hedge. I mean, we stopped keeping sheep on purpose. So that was the start of Woodland Skills Centre. That was nearly 30 years ago. And that has spread. If you look on the website, there's something round about 70 or 80 courses a year in traditional craft. So it's coppice and greenwood craft, it's basket making, it's blacksmithing, it's coracles, it's longbows, lots of bushcraft. And then it sort of expanded wider. We're a regional hub of the National Botanic Gardens. We do horticulture courses. We do a lot of countryside management stuff, hedge laying, woodland management, stuff like that. And we also do a lot of mindfulness courses. And we also run live music and poetry and drama in the woods. Now, I've bundled all that together because that's what you see on the website. We are run by a social enterprise, and the social enterprise has use of most of the land indefinitely, as long as it's used for social and environmental benefit and educational benefit. When we look at the courses, for the last 25 years or so, every Saturday and every Sunday, I've sat in one of our rooms welcoming people on the courses, and they are almost exclusively white, middle class, educated, in work or retired, credit card owning, car driving, and it's lovely to have them here and see how happy they are at the end of the course to take their basket or their willow sculpture home or whatever. But they are not representative of our population, and not even maybe the people that we should be working with most of all. We have no intention of cutting down on that section of our work, but it led us about 20 years ago into another area which we call children and families. We do forest school on-site and off-site. We support schools in developing outdoor learning areas and nature areas. We do a holiday club, birthday parties in the woods, family days, family weekends, family weeks in the woods, and work with children with additional needs. And that's the sort of second part of what we did. And I just want to flag up what was an important moment for us. We had been running Holiday Club for years, and it was good fun, but when we looked at the children who came, they came because their parents knew we did it. They went on our website, they booked them in, they paid with a credit card, they got their kids up in the morning, appropriately dressed, brought them to us, and collected them at the end of the day. And as I say, it was really good fun, but the more we looked at it, the more we said, no, we shouldn't be doing this. Because if these children are not coming to us, they're going to be going somewhere else, because they come from the sorts of families that do that sort of stuff. And why do we never see children with additional needs on Holiday Club? Why do we never see families with children with additional needs and mental health problems and whatever on the family days? So we have been working with the education department and with the health board on deliberately, obviously last year blew a bit of a hole in this program, but we're coming back into it, trying to target children with additional needs and their families. So that's part 2 of what we do. Part 3 is our social prescribing programs, which we've been running for about 20 years. And obviously we're in transition from lockdown, where we kept open all the way through with groups of adults with complex disabilities, but on very much reduced group sizes. At the moment, like this week, in terms of social prescribing, we have 3 days with adults with complex disabilities, 2 days with young adults with autism, 4 days alternative provision for pupils who are not in school, 3 sessions a week of Badly Active, which is mums with under 2-year-olds or 2-year-olds and under. We support a walking group in Wrexham on behalf of Coy Clayle. We have a mother and toddler group on site 1 day a week, and we have a mind group doing an 8-week course. That's what, in the last 7 days, we've run 26 sessions, 6 off-site and 20 on-site. And it's partly the pressure of post-lockdown. We have coming up a lot of other programs. We've got 20 days to deliver for home education groups. We've got days for young carers. We've got days for programs for 16 to 24-year-olds who are not in education, employment or training. Just want to stop at that point, because when we started doing this, we had many phone calls from commissioning agencies who assumed that we were going to deliver stuff for free And from day one, we've absolutely refused to do that. And what we said to education, social services, health board, whoever, if you think that the social prescribing programs that we can deliver are beneficial and of value, then they have a value, and there either is a budget or there should be a budget that funds it. And it's interesting that after nearly 20 years of fielding phone calls that assumed we were going to do it for nothing, that doesn't happen anymore. And that's the biggest change in what we've done since the beginning. Since about 3 years ago, the phone calls we get now and emails we get now are, we want to send you a group of people, how much will it cost? And that's, I think, really significant, and it's good that our health board, Betsy Cadwallader, are on record as saying that they want to move a lot of this third sector provision into their main budget streams and not to have it relying on short-term funding. I think I need to stop there, except to say that as a social enterprise, no, two more things. As a social enterprise, we share our experience, our expertise, whatever, with anybody, and we don't charge for that. We have no wish to set up satellite woodland skills centres around the place. We want to concentrate on our community. But if there are places, if there are people in other areas that want to tap into our experience, we are always very pleased to do that. The other thing, just a quick run through, the 50-acre site, 40-something acres of woodland, mainly managed as coppice standards, and that coppice is really important. It generates between £3,000 and £4,000 a year in hazel coppice products. We have workshops, we have timber frame meeting buildings, we have polytunnels, tree nursery, apiary, wildflower meadow, vineyard, arboretum, allotments, medicinal herb garden, heritage orchard, stuff like that. When people say to us, what's all that about? Why don't you concentrate on one thing? The answer is very simple. We have a 4-word strapline that underpins our social prescribing, and it's person-centered, task-based. And the task-based is really important when people come to us, like adults with dementia. We have a big dementia, a big program supporting adults with dementia. When people come to us, whether it's adults with learning difficulties, physical difficulties, mental health issues, adults with dementia, whatever, we want to provide them not just a social experience, but the opportunity to do something positive and constructive that we can step back and say, look what we've done, isn't that great? You know, we might have weeded the tree nursery, we might have made a bench for somebody, we make stuff for hedgehog rescue, we make stuff for Chester Zoo, we make stuff for the Wildlife Trust. But that task base is really important, and all these things that have been developed on the site are so that it's purposeful activity. We do a lot of drinking tea and eating biscuits, but we do like to get out and do stuff because that enables us to say to people, look what you've done, isn't that great? Okay, I'll stop.
Thank you, Rod. So interesting to hear how the Woodland Skills Centre has evolved over the years, and it's a great programme of events that you've got there, supporting lots of people in the community. Okay, we'll head over to you, Lucy, if you're ready.
That's hard to follow, Rod. Thanks very much. That was great. And I heard Rod talk in DVSC a few years ago when I was just had all the ideas of outside lives spinning in my mind. And I remember going to see Rod and saying, how do I do this? How do I do that? And he handed me a big pile of documents and sheets and gave me lots of advice. So when he says that he's willing to support people to do the same as what they're doing or trying to achieve that, he means it. So just a thank you to Rod. So I would like to give you guys a little bit of bit of a background about Outside Lives and where it started to sort of set the scene a little bit, really. I'm a social worker, or was a social worker at Flintshire County Council, worked in lots of different services. That was hospital, adults with learning disabilities, older people, dementia, children with learning disabilities. So I worked in loads of different groups with groups of people, and I was knocking my head against the brick wall pretty much daily, thinking this isn't working for me, this isn't working for me. I seemed to be swimming against the tide and fighting a system that I just didn't agree with. And one of the reasons why I felt so passionate about it was that I couldn't understand why, if you had a physical disability, you had to go to the physical disability team, because you might have a mental health challenge as well as that, or you might have dementia, or you might be older with a learning disability. So why were they segregating people through these teams all the time? And for me, it just didn't work. And I really frustrated. I said, listen, I'm going to have to take a year out. I'm going to have to take a year out. I'm going to have to go on it. So I did. I sent my little resignation letter and went to Spain on a motorbike and drove around, wobbled around Spain, and found a place where I could study permaculture. And when I started studying permaculture, I remember a point in which I phoned my colleague, the guy that I'd sat next to for years, who was brilliant, loads of inspiring, and the reason why I hadn't left for so long. And I said, we're just learning about this way of growing plants and flowers, and it is actually totally transferable to communities as well. So what I learned was what we've been talking about. So in terms of planting, how important it is to plant things to diversify what you've got in your garden, and how that creating ecosystems in your garden or through planting actually limits the need for external input. So actually what I realized we were doing, we're monocropping society. So everybody that has got a learning disability and uses a wheelchair, you can all go to a day centre. So then I started to think about this really differently, and I thought how important it is to have a diverse community. And so that in that diverse community, what I mean is somebody with dementia, somebody who's got a learning disability, somebody who's older, somebody who's younger, children with people with dementia, intergenerational. That's what was really important to me. And outside. So I realised, for my own personal well-being and growing up outside and here at our site, how instrumental nature is in my life, and how we should be looking at and valuing nature and getting our teachings from nature. You know, what is nature telling us to do, and how does nature do it? And that's generally how things work. We are nature, and that's our little strapline. We are nature, explore connections. And that came to me in the middle of Spain somewhere, you know, when I was studying permaculture. So I came back and I thought, right, I'm going to use this space. We've got this 4-acre space, and it's certainly not the size that we're looking at in terms of rods, but we've got a really cute small space, which includes 2-acre, maybe, woodland. It includes a wildlife pond. It includes a yurt tomorrow. It includes a cabin which we've built, an outdoor kitchen, a wildflower meadow, a paddock, an old orchard, a Victorian garden. It's going to have a polytunnel in it because we've just secured some funding. So we've created this space, and it's awesome and we love it. And what we're now trying to do is build up a programme of events that we can operate from here. So obviously COVID just put a stop to everything. We were just about to launch a big program of events ranging from art to conservation to yoga, all sorts of stuff that's centered around people and the planet. So our values are actually permaculture values, or permaculture principles: earth care, people care, future care. So they're so important. Whatever we do sort of goes straight back to those values. And so COVID put a stop to all of our activities. You know, I moved out. I had to move out of my house because my sister, so I'm actually living on site at the moment. All sorts of stuff. I'm going back home soon, and site's going to be reopened, which is just brilliant for us. And we're just trying to now develop this program of activities. And you know, we don't have, certainly don't have the specialisms in terms of you guys, you know, chatting to Mel this morning and listening to the skills that you've got in the woods. You know, we haven't got that. I haven't got that. So I need to bring in people that can deliver things like that, you know. So I'm actively looking for yoga practitioners and complementary therapists and all sorts of stuff, so they can use our space well. So using our woodland is really important to us. We've got, I think, I'm learning this, thanks to Huel. Got lots of indicators of ancient woodland in there. We've got just a really cool space that we can use to seat people in a sitting circle around a fire. And we want to learn, we want to do all sorts of different crafts and activities in the woods. What is really important, I'm just looking at my notes now because I've jotted down some things I wanted to tell you all. What is really important, like Rod said, is that we manage that woodland sensitively so that we're not, you know, that's my priority. So we are not damaging habitats or just exploiting the woodlands negatively. So, you know, I need to seek the professional help from, and we're lucky that we've got the Wildlife Trust next door to us, so they're bobbing over all the time. We've had people coming to do botanical surveys for us, the Batman, the Mothman, all of these different people coming in, which has just been incredible. And all just there if you go and find it, you know. People are so willing, you know, when you tap into all of these organisations, they just come and help you. So we've had really great support off Llysagoed, with really great support off, you know, the Woodland Skills Centre, North Wales Wildlife Trust. Plus we've got all of our networks in terms of social services. So there is a big thing that I need to sort of share with you guys, and that's sort of what's been wrestling around my head in terms of sustainability. How do we create models, and Rod talked about this, how do we create models for people to be able to use what we do? So folk that perhaps haven't got loads of money, or perhaps, you know, are struggling with transport, whatever it might be, you know, how do we enable people to come and use our services, but not chase those grants and not have systems whereby people can't make choices? So from a social work perspective now, you know, we talk a lot about this, and there's a, you know, when people have got eligible care needs, they are often given services. So they are given a day centre, bussed out of their local community and taken to a day centre. They are given, you know, 2 calls a day with a care agency for somebody who has got no interest in what they have to come and help them to do something or other. But then what they are lacking in is choice and control about how actually can my well-being be met by something that I choose. So actually, there's funding out there for individuals to tap into their own, to design their life through what is called a direct payment. And that is people being able to choose how they spend the money that's allocated to them on services or activities that are going to benefit them. So if Huel had a direct payment, for example, and he needed to improve his confidence or his social connections, and he was totally into woodlands and art, he might be allocated 100 quid, just off the top of my head, 100 quid. And that, if you have the choice of how you would spend that £100, you might choose, do you know what? I'm going to go to North Wales Wildlife Trust on a Thursday afternoon and do their volunteer course, and then, do you know what, on a Thursday morning I'm going to go to the Woodland Skills Centre and go and do an activity that Rod's got on there, and then on a Friday afternoon when, you know, my husband's away or my wife's away, I'm going to go to Outside Lives. So it's giving people that flexibility and choice and control over how they spend their money. So that is really important. So we know that there are needs, people have needs, and actually they can use their money, and we've got to be smarter about this and understand those systems within social services to realise actually we need to be pushing for this, because then it levels that playing field, enables all of our community groups to have an opportunity to access some of these people, or that's the wrong way around, it enables people to access what we have got on offer, not these blanket solutions that they provide in social services like day centres or whatnot. That people need to have real choice on how they achieve their own well-being. So that for me is something really, really important that I wanted to share. And I'm really more than happy if anybody wants to talk to me a little bit more about that after this or at a later date. I'm more than happy for anybody to give me a shout, because I'm so passionate about it. What I is really important to me is that people get that choice, because otherwise the big wigs that I call them in social services are making the decisions on behalf of people, and when people go to panel, and they go to panel to say where does this person want to go, they say that day centre because we've already paid for it, you know. And actually we need to say, hang on a minute, that's not fair, you know, these people need choices. So that's what I would like to wanted to let you all know today. And I don't think I've missed anything else. My dog's whining to get out the door, so I'm going to let him.
Thank you, Lucy. As energetic as ever. I love your project, because it just makes me smile when I just when I arrive, and I'm yet to see a live event there because of COVID. But thank you very much. It's fantastic what you do.
Designing it all now. It's been we've used this time really to maximize what we've got here, you know, to grow everything here, so we're prepared for people, you know. Just talking about risk assessments this morning, you walk around, if you have a place, if you walk around going risk, you know.
Thanks, Lucy. Cara, are there any questions that we need to address in the chat box?
I can't see anyone apart from mine. Judith, you had a reflection. There's a bit of reflecting going on. Yes, Judith there.
Do you want sort of vocal
Yes, agree.
feedback as well?
Judith said, yeah, go on, Judith.
Yeah, I was wondering if you wanted me to just flesh that out. All I was going to say was Rod's point about meaningful activity. Might as well give you a bit of honesty. My journey into mental health support was as a result of having mental ill health myself, and so I was fortunate, blessed, or whatever you want to call it, to get a job quite early on in my recovery through sort of supported work, and I worked on a community farm, and that was massive, because it wasn't, I was going to say basket weaving. This is the wrong forum to say basket weaving as a denigrative term, because I don't mean it in that sense. But it wasn't, well, something I heard later in my career, knitting squares that then someone undid at the end of the day, which I was appalled to hear about. So it was meaningful. So I'm a big one for saying, yes, absolutely bang the drum for meaningful, purposeful activity, because it's that dignity that we give people by doing something that they are choosing to do, and reflecting again on what Lucy was saying about that kind of personal choice and it being real and worthwhile. And also that non-monoculture, there's so much about community, isn't there? Plants naturally grow in community, if you like. They're there as a broad range and ecosystem, and it's about us recognizing that, and and getting your youngsters to spend time with your adults with dementia, because we don't exist in silos in our life, and not if we can help it. So why would we expect people with additional health and social whatever needs to? It's so I'm just buzzing because I'm loving to hear all this. It's fabulous stuff, so thank you.
Thank you, Judith.
I did have a question for Rod, if I could ask it. Just really specific questions for, as a newcomer, a community woodland group wants to go down the route of working with referred groups, whether they're referred from council or the health service. How do they start? What bureaucracy is involved? Who should they start talking to? Is it hard? Is it difficult? Yeah.
Oh.
Or just a couple of tips.
It is hard to start off, but it snowballs, and that's our experience. That if we deliver a program that's successful for Working Denbighshire or the Education Department or Social Services or Mind or whoever, they then come back to us. That's not just because it's successful, it's because there's nobody else. And to start with, there are things that need to go through, and I think Amy's probably going to talk later on about trained workers. I've sort of been involved with work that Claire has done on training for social prescribing, and it is not just an opportunity, but it's an impending nightmare. That there are more and more commissioning bodies wanting to spend money on commissioning social prescribing services, and there are two sort of ogres in the undergrowth. One is the commercial organisations that are not interested in the service users; they're only interested in financial profit. And then secondly, there are people who are completely unsuited, unqualified, untrained. I know of at least 2 social prescribing programs running in North Wales with people who are not insured, not qualified, not DBS checked, and both of whom have criminal records, and both of whom have been involved in drug dealing, and they are being employed to work with vulnerable adults and children, and it's a nightmare, and we need to get hold of this. And I'm really grateful to Amy and Claire for the work that they've been doing over the last 3 years in trying to have a proper professional training system and a career pathway. So going back to the question, if you're starting from scratch, you need to have staff who are qualified and insured and everything. You need to have a site that is fit to deliver it, and I think Amy might say something later on about community woodland shelters therein. That's something else that we're involved here. You need to have a site that's appropriate, and you need to be able to offer a program that's worthwhile, and you can't do that from a standing start. It has to be built up gradually. And I've got to say, with Woodland Skills Centre, there was never a vision. People keep saying, "Oh, was that your vision?" No, it wasn't at all. I used to keep sheep in that shed. It's got to grow, and it's got to grow from little beginning.
Maybe starting just with designing one course and one offer, and taking it from there, by the sounds of it, is maybe the best route, and building on your experience and of that.
We can't cope with what we're being asked to deliver. That education department coming back to me again today with yet another youngster who hasn't been in school for 2 or 3 years. Will we take him for a minimum of 2 days a week, preferably 5? We can't do it. We just don't have the capacity.
Great. Yes, it sounds like there's a massive need for this, so we need to support everyone. And as the conversation going on in the chat, Amy will be talking later about the support out there in terms of training for, to a minimum national standard to train providers. And Gwyneth will be talking afterwards more about people, how in the direct payment system, and how people can get involved as providers in that. So more will come up later on, but does anyone else have any thoughts or reflections they want to add? Have we got any time, Howell? How are we doing on time?
Can I just have a quick thing on the direct payment? It's terrific, and it should be more of it, but how do the people who've got the direct payment know what's available to them? And that's a huge battle I have with social services when they say that we are putting our provision and that people aren't taking it up, to which my answer is, that's because you're not telling them it's there. You know who's out there who needs support. We don't. We can provide the support, but you've got to take the message out to the people who need it. And if you don't do that, it's not going to work.
Thank you, Rod. Amy, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to say I think the direct payment system could be really beneficial, and but I also think every system can be hijacked and manipulated, and I've heard of examples where vulnerable people are kind of persuaded to spend their money on specific things, or where support workers, like Rod's saying, it's really important. There's the whole range of activity that's available to those people to be able to make their choice. And I think sometimes people don't know what type of activity they would benefit from without going and trying everything out. So it would be nice to see a system where there's choice and there's ways for people to spend the money, but there's also ways to provide services for free so that everyone can try things out, and to have, just to try and not have that kind of hijacking and manipulation in the system would be great.
Thank you, Amy. Yeah, we've just about caught up to where we should be now, after a bit of a slow start. But Cara, do you want to take over from here, and I'll monitor the chat room?
Well, we're going to have a bit of a break, but I didn't want to cut. I'm really conscious that it's really important to let people sort of talk. So if anybody wants to have one more question or before the break, I don't mind, losing a little bit, because I don't want to cut people off. Maybe everyone's deeply in thought, and that's fine. It's a lot to take in.
Any hands up?
Can't see any hands up. Oh, Gwyneth.
Oh, Gwyneth.
I don't mind coming in at this stage about DP, just in case it does get missed in my presentation. But I think the legislation within each local authority has sometimes missed what DP was intended for. And Lucy quite rightly says it is about giving people choice. And I think DP has been, direct payments has been looked at by various local authorities who have now perhaps taken it in-house. Some still use Diverse Cymru. So I think it's something for us all really to question our local authorities about how DP is managed, how social workers are trained to deliver it, to offer it, to have those conversations with our CVCs as well. So yeah, those conversations need to be had. But it is a big problem, and I think every local authority area will have somebody who will be very concerned about DP. I've been concerned about it for 4 years, and it's still moving very slowly as far as I'm concerned.
Judith.
Yeah, I
want to ask about that.
It was more that briefly I was a direct payments advisor. For one reason or another, I didn't stay as a direct payments advisor for long. So I know a little bit about the internal workings, but not a great deal. I also am a PA for someone being paid via direct payments in another part of my life. So that's just a bit of context. So stuff I do know about DP direct payments is, as Gwyneth was saying, it's about understanding the system in your own local authority, really who's managing it. Because when I was an advisor, it was managed by a charity, but it might as well have been managed by the local authority, because not long after I left, it was taken back in-house. So it's knowing who the people who are helping administer the direct payments are in your area. So that's one of the challenges. The other one is, if any of the individuals you sort of work with, support, or who want to access your service are on direct payments, it's about, so to say you've got someone, I don't know, let's say someone with additional needs, and they've heard about you and they want to come and visit, and maybe they've got a PA, personal assistant, on direct payments to help them, but they don't know how to make that work. That's a question to find out, well, who is your local authority? Who is the person who helps you manage your direct payments, who helps you to pay your staff member, the person who comes along and helps you? So find out who that is and have that conversation with the person in the council or the charity or wherever it is. So it's that side of things. But also there's something I bobbed in the chat that I heard about many years ago. I don't know much more about it other than, what flagged up on my radar at the time. But there are groups of individuals who were receiving direct payments, and also their PAs, the people who were paid to support them, who kind of came together and made themselves into a cooperative so that they could make best use of those payments. So it's a legitimate way of doing it rather than this hijacking that concerns us that Amy mentioned. And I know the Wales Cooperative Centre helped people do that. So I've bobbed a link in the chat. So if any of you here are aware of something like that, it might help you. There you go, pooling direct payments. So it's all of that. So I mean, I don't know if I'm telling people stuff they already know, and I apologise if folk want to run away and have a cup of tea and a comfort break now, but that's just my kind of knowledge download in case any of it is helpful to anybody. So yeah, there you go.
Thank you, Judith. Great, thank you. Okay, I've used up Howell's great time saving by making us all a little bit late again, but that's fine. It's all useful. So let's take a 3.5 minute. No, let's take as quick a break as we can. Can we get back and get started by past? Do you think? Yeah, if you just put your mute on and switch your video off, and we'll leave the meeting open. How are we doing? Have we got? Okay, people are rolling back in. Yes, if it's okay with everyone, it'd be great to move on to Gwyneth's talk then, and hear about. Oh, I've lost my pages. I was going to just say a little something. So the first half was hearing from particular woodland groups, and what the services are being offered on the ground. But this section, we'd like to give more of a national picture. So what are prescribers looking for when they prescribe a service or recommend a service to a patient or to a service user? How does that work? So Gwyneth is in Pembrokeshire, near me, but this is a case nationally. She works for the third sector, the community sector, and acts as a referrer to services. In Pembrokeshire, they're called community connectors, but I think they're called other things around Wales. Gwyneth,
they are. They can be called community navigators, link workers, social prescribers.
I'll let you carry on then, Gwyneth, because you'll do a better description.
In Pembrokeshire, we have 4 connectors taking referrals from social workers, GP surgeries, families, etc. 4 connectors working across Pembrokeshire, but we also have a connector for children and families, and we also have a connector for dementia supportive communities, and that's just not limited for people with dementia, but it could include people with Parkinson's or other illnesses. So I've put a slide up here about what is social prescribing. It does tend to have a focus on health. You may be familiar with social prescribed activities such as Dance for Health or Exercise on Prescription, where services are commissioned to provide routes to preventative services such as falls prevention, cardiac, obesity. There's smoking cessation classes where there may be a 6-week program to follow. But we tend to think of social enabling as more of an action for the individual, because we don't want to do anything for people, we want to do things with people. So our approach is to have a guided conversation with an individual and work with them on an activity that will enable them to improve their well-being, improve their quality of life. We have had some funding from GP clusters. So in a way, this is a little bit about social prescribing, in that over lockdown, we had the invasion of digital in all our lives. And so we, as connectors, wanted to look at how we could improve access to digital activities. And so we did approach the GP clusters to look at them funding us to provide people with digital equipment on loan for 2 months, but we do extend that loan depending on the circumstances of the individual. But this was an opportunity for us then to enable people to access activities and services online, because at the start of COVID, as you all know, a lot of services and activities went online, and a lot of people were disadvantaged because they weren't able to do this. One of the things that we're particularly keen about is to look at co-production. It is all about prevention, increasing well-being. It's about community, and it is about co-producing activities and services that people need. So in line with the Social Services and Wellbeing Act, with the Future Generations Act, we wanted to ensure that we were looking at a service that was preventing people from going into services time and time again. So we wanted to avoid that revolving door feeling that people got. They would enter social services, they would come back out, they'd go into hospital, come back out. So 4 years ago, the local authority, the health board, and third sector came together to look at a prevention model, a preventative model, which came to be the Community Connector project. And this was very much about us taking referrals and having the conversations with people to enable people to know what was going on in their communities. Because again, getting information out to people is so difficult. You can have leaflets, you can have an online directory with Info Engine or Dewis, but people are still not aware about something that is happening on their doorstep. So the community connectors came about to map communities, and a big part of their role is to go out into communities and actually speak to people, see what volunteering opportunities are available, and then they can refer those people onto those activities and services. At the start of COVID, as an example, 97 groups were set up over the period of the last 14 months. So from nothing, communities came together because they wanted to do good neighbour schemes, they wanted to help their communities, and they wanted to be able to do things like shopping, picking up prescriptions, dog walking. And so we thought to ourselves, well, we need to harness this now. How can we ensure that this this great opportunity that has arisen over a pandemic can carry on? So we are in touch with the 97 groups to support them with micro grants, with information, with volunteer support, and our links with third sector ensure that perhaps some people now have gone into volunteering that have never volunteered before. So some of our third sector organisations have really seen their workforce grow over the pandemic. With regards to co-production, it is about us having those conversations with people so we can plan and deliver and support services together. All parties have a contribution to make in order to improve the quality of life for people in communities. So we look at community assets. What buildings are there? Have they got a community hall? Have they got a church? Have they got a church hall? And then we can work with commissioners to identify gaps, gather evidence. And one of the big things that we've gathered over the pandemic have been real life stories. These are so powerful. Our commissioners can hear from people about the difference a project and a service has made to people. One of the areas that we consider is the 5 ways to wellbeing, because it's simple. It's about connecting people with family, with local groups, through digital means, connecting people with one another, keep learning. We've got fantastic resources in our communities. In Pembrokeshire, we've got a college, we've got libraries, we've got organisations like the U3A, we've got heritage groups, we've got opportunities for people to skills share, opportunities for intergenerational working, being active. We look at our leisure centres, our local community groups, our yoga classes, swimming, outdoor swimming. Outdoor swimming has grown massively in Pembrokeshire. We've got a fantastic coastline and it's now being used. So that's fantastic to see. And then about giving, this is about perhaps volunteering for the first time. This is about joining a charity, perhaps something that you've never considered before. And the other approach as well is to look at how businesses could give give their staff time to volunteer. And that's going to be a big growth, I think, in the years to come. And then, of course, taking notice, which has been the focus very much today. It's about looking at what's around you. Join a gardening group, join an allotment. Cara and I actually had a meeting in an allotment a couple of weeks ago prior to this conference. So it is about us reconnecting with nature. I have put the map of Pembrokeshire here on my last slide. A fantastic place to live. But this just shows the breadth and the size of the connector role, really, and the reach, and the areas that they have to cover to map and to understand their areas. And again, we couldn't do this without volunteers. We couldn't do this without the third sector organisations that provide these services. But I think for me, the challenge is, how do we get those services paid for? It's been mentioned earlier. Nothing should be done for free. Volunteers shouldn't be considered a free ticket to free services. It's about how can we look at a system that will allow people to have choice, that will allow people to have access to services, and at the same time make use of the fantastic resources that we have across Wales. Happy to take any questions. I'll stop sharing.
Thank you, Gwyneth. And just to say, there are signposts as Gwyneth is. They're across Wales. That's my understanding. That's correct, isn't it, Gwyneth? So there's people like you in every county.
Well, not exactly, because again, it does depend on funding. In Ceredigion, for instance, they're funded by the local authority, and their approach is slightly different. In Carmarthenshire, they're funded within GP surgeries and follow a stricter format. So they follow a 6-week programme, whereas with us, we can have a conversation with somebody today and have another conversation with them at the end of the week. We can have a telephone conversation. We can, in better times, we can meet them in their own homes. At the moment, we're going back to doorstep to front gate visits. But we are flexible, and we work with the individual and what they need.
Thank you. Okay, great. If you can store your questions in the chat for Gwyneth, and we'll go on to Amy, who's going to talk to us about their work on creating a national training standard for everybody, for the providers, and also your Active Woods programme. Thank you, Amy.
Thanks, Cara. Do you want me to try and be within 5 minutes?
Well, you've got 10 now. If Nico's not doing the Active Woods, you can spread out, if that's right. What time are we on? I mean, you could, if you can make it shorter, that's great. That gives more chance for discussion.
Okay.
Thank you. But you can manage.
Yeah, I'll say what I think might be helpful, but please interrupt me or ask questions if you have them. I've lost. Bear with me a minute. So yeah, thank you very much, Gwyneth. Your talk, it links quite well to what I'm about to share, in that we are one of the third sector providers of services, and we work with the community connectors in Ceredigion. And I think you're right, they do work differently in that I think they map what's there and then they kind of promote that service. I don't know if they have capacity to do as much of the asset-based mapping as you do, and that sounds really, really amazing. I'm just going to try and share my presentation, which I will talk quite quickly. So just to give a little bit of background, I work for Coed Small Woods Wales, and we have been running health and wellbeing projects in different woodlands across Wales since 2010. And Active Woods Wales is our kind of flagship project, really, that has kind of grown and developed, and it's very much locally led, in that each of our project areas has evolved in different ways and offers slightly different woodland services and activities depending on what the people in that local area want. So for example, on Anglesey, we work with a lot of the council with learning and physical disability clients, and what they love doing is woodland kind of keep fit activity and campfire cooking and visiting different woodlands around Anglesey. Whereas in Wrexham, we work with dementia and cancer recovery, and they like to do mainly walks around the local different country parks and woodlands. So depending on where we work and the needs of the client group, our project will kind of flex around that. But obviously the main goal is to improve health and well-being, to be really inclusive, and to encourage everyone to be able to take part, no matter what their disability or ability or you know, whatever their needs are. We want to facilitate them getting out. I realised I'm not doing the slideshow, so I'll just quickly go through that. So you've already heard from Gwyneth around what social prescribing is. What we've tried to do with the project in recent years is tap into that social prescribing network and reach out to the community connectors and make sure they're aware of all the activities that are running. And the way we've done that is by making sure we've got postcards and promotional material that the community connectors and GPs and anybody who wants to refer knows that they can either pick up the phone, or they can fill in our referral form, or they can send an email. It's kind of, we want everyone to know they can just get in touch, tell us who would benefit from taking part, who wants to take part, and then we get in touch with them to find out which of the services would benefit them. Another thing that we've done that's been really brilliant is to provide experiences for health professionals. So giving them an experience of what it's like to take part in the activity means that they then feel passionate and know what it's about, and then they're more likely to talk about it. And maybe linking that in with the direct payments, if we were to run more services for the people who are both promoting what we do and the participants, then it would give people that chance to understand what it's about, to make those choices. Just going to touch on the training work that we've been doing. So as a result of the activities and services we've been providing, we've also been working with a network of training partners, and the key ones have been Woodland Skills Centre with Rod, Down to Earth with Chris Dow, and Reconnect with Andrew and Susie. And what we realised is that we are all delivering slightly different courses for leaders to equip them to run health and wellbeing sessions in the outdoors. And we decided to come together and look at what was really important about what we were teaching and training and bringing people together to understand. And could we come up with one course, one qualification that we could then all deliver, so that everyone had the same training and experience, and we were bringing together the best of what everyone had learned through delivering their own courses over many years. We've got a wider range of partners who are also involved in this. So this was actually building on the work of the West Wales WAM network, and they brought us together in that network under Woodlands and Countryside, and we decided as a group that we would map training pathways, we would agree terminology, and we would look at creating a professional standard and code of best practice. So at the moment, and also these core units. So at the moment we've developed, we've been working together on the qualification, and now we're working on the code of best practice. And the reason we've been doing this is to try and build this trust between health and environment sector, and be able to offer something to the sector so that people have faith in the services that are being delivered in the outdoors, but also the leaders themselves feel equipped and confident in what they're doing. They understand what they need to think through in order to run a successful programme that means they get positive outcomes, and they feel that everybody is safe and cared for, and the woodland or nature space that they're using is also cared for. Why isn't this moving? I think I'm going to stop in a minute. So wellbeing, it's a wellbeing in nature leader qualification, and it's got 3 core units, and then there'll be other optional units that people can take. Rod is actually piloting this course next week. It's starting, but there's going to be another course, the same one running in Pembrokeshire, and then another one in South Wales coming up this year. So we're very much looking at how it works, how it runs, getting feedback, improving it. But it's really exciting to be part of this partnership. I think I should probably stop there, Cara, because that's 25 past. But if anyone would like more information about the course, please get in touch with Rod or I. And yeah, I mean, what we want to see is that there are these nature-based services embedded within the healthcare system, that there are better funding streams, ideally not project funding, but it's something that's embedded in the system, that people in the sector are skilled and providing services that meet the needs of a wide range of people, and that there's long-term community engagement to care for the environments that we're using at the same time. Thanks everybody for listening.
Carrie, you're on mute.
Thank you. It was so good going on mute. Thank you, Amy. Thank you for you got the short straw there, being the last one. I'm sorry about that, but if there's any questions in the chat, we could answer a couple. And I think if you put your question in the chat anyway and we don't get to you, we can endeavour to follow up over the next couple of days when we send out the feedback forms as well. And we are recording all of this, so we will make sure the recording is available online when we've edited it down a bit. Is there any questions in the chat, Howell, or anybody want to put their hand up for questions?
I think Mike's got a question for Amy. Mike, do you want to ask verbally, just so you can elaborate on that?
I was just asking if there'll be stuff running up in North Wales of a similar on that course. Yeah, the leader.
The Wellbeing in Nature, yeah. So Rod's venue is in North Wales, in Denbighshire, okay. And I think the current course is full, but there's another one in September. Is that Rod?
Right, September, 2 places left.
Well, thank you.
We'll put a link in the chat. Any other questions? If we don't see your hand waving, do shout out. Thank you, Zena.
Lots of people agreeing with the speakers, and lots of positive comments. I don't see any other questions. Well, actually, Libby asks if we can share the information with everyone, which we will do after the event. Yeah.
Oh, Judith's got her hand up.
I'm going to make what's probably quite an obvious statement, because Amy should probably know that I would like to be on her radar for that course when it comes available in South Wales. But I'm just putting it out there and say, please do let me know when you've got your sort of details of that in our area. I would really, really like to be able to access that if I can. That would be fab. Thank you.
How can people get on the waiting list, Amy, or on a list to be informed?
They can email me, and I'll put you in touch with Andrew now, Judith, because he'll be running the course, and he was wondering whether to do it in September or wait. So I think more people that are interested now, it will give him the push to actually commit to doing it in September. So that would be super helpful. And Sarah, yeah, great, Sarah. I'll put you on that list too.
Brilliant, thank you. Okay, I am being moved to think about how do we, it's great to ensure the minimum standards of the trainers, but you know, all this, what Rod was saying earlier about people not being properly insured or having a proper site, all of these things, there's so much to think about. You kind of need a minimum standards for providers as a whole somehow. Amy?
Yeah, I was just talking to Maria yesterday about creating a kind of assessment document so that Gleisig development officers, and this could be something that we develop together, you could then go out and support the community woodland groups working out what their site's suitable for, what leaders and providers they've got within their network or they might have externally, and what training anybody might need, who will need DBS, who will need insurance. So yeah, we talked about how that could work, and I think that could be one way to take it forwards. So there's a kind of an assessment support process which identifies what the community woodland site needs, and then we could support. Yeah, we can work in partnership.
That sounds fantastic. Gosh, the hour and a half has disappeared so quickly, which we suspected it might do. I feel like it needs longer attention. But anything that people feel hasn't been addressed today, I think we're developing these online discussion events, once every couple of months. So do get back in touch with one of us at Clyde Goedwig, and we will look at putting on more discussion events if it hasn't been covered already. So I just want to finish by saying thank you to the great speakers for getting the discussion going and telling us your experience. And if people do, I'm going to close the meeting now formally for anyone who needs to leave at 5:30, but we will keep the room open. If people do want to chat and grab each other and ask a bit more, then we'll keep it open and I'll stay here. I'll send out a feedback form. It is being recorded, so we'll make that available on our YouTube channel and on our website, and it'll go out in the newsletter. And yes, and we'll also be writing an article. Jenny and Howell and I will put together some information which will be on the website. So thank you everyone for coming and making it so interesting. So if you need to go, we'll say goodbye. And if you want to stay, we'll stay. We'll be here. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Bye.
See y'all.
Bye.
Mara, will you share the emails with me of the people that would like the details of the training? I think I've got
yeah.
Judy.
Yes, I mean, if you like, Amy, we can actually, yes, if you've got names, or if it's in the chat, which I'll analyze afterwards, then we can do that. But also, if you've got an advert, publicity to send out, we can send it out to everyone who came on this event.
Yeah, so it's Judith and
Mike.
Oh, Mike Goldthorpe. Yeah.
And Mike.
Mm-hmm.
Also, Annie, Mel and I are really interested too, but we're very much not South Wales. We're mid.
Yes, I am as well. I'm in Ceredigion.
Okay, great.
Sorry, I can't get the chat to work.
Oh.
I was desperately trying to unmute and my cursor decided to develop a lot of mind of its own and disappear all the way around the screen. But Amy, I've done a belt and braces, so you have my email as well. Not that I'm keen or anything, you understand. So,
does anyone else have any more reflections or questions that they want to fire off while there's a few of us still here? We've still got Rod here and Amy of the speakers.
I wanted to say thank you to the speakers, and it's nice to see you, Rod and Lucy. I think we've met years and years ago when I came to one of your nature.
Oh, and Lucy, sorry.
But yeah, it all sounds really positive, and it's a great community to be a part of this. I trained to be an occupational therapist, and as I mentioned earlier on, just started to work with Earl Aspel Gardens, but it's just really inspiring to hear the passion of everybody here about how they're talking about the social prescribing bits and how important it is that we do get this bigger, and it just, I suppose, just comes back to that budgeting thing and how we pay for it, and how, because I guess a lot of the people that I've spoken to and a lot of OTs that I've trained with, they're all really passionate about wanting to deliver this type of stuff as well, and it's just, how do we make more opportunities for people? Because there's people that want to deliver it, there's people that want to receive it. It's just that bit, isn't it, the orchestrating it and putting it together and making sure the money's there. So yeah, I think things like this is great, with obviously sharing expertise and stuff. But yeah, just want to say thank you, really. And awesome.
Great.
Yeah.
I think Mel, Tracy, you had sorry, the other Tracy under Mel's name had something to say too.
I just yeah, cheers and thank you to everybody. But the thing that I was wondering whether we could work out or orchestrate in some sort of way, Cara, would be, could we use a travelling but to other places bursary to go and visit Rod up North Wales?
Yeah, we can. We can
Please.
certainly talk about that. Yeah, sure. I'm actually wondering whether, if several people want to do that, whether we try and coordinate that in one go. But there's a few different things to talk about.
Yeah.
Mm.
Nice one.
Can I just say that if people did want to come here, they'd be really welcome, but don't just come for half an hour.
No.
If you're coming this way, come for a weekend. We can provide free camping with access to centre buildings with shower and toilet and kitchen and meeting room. You know, we can talk about social prescribing. We can talk about our experience. We can go and do some practical stuff in the woods. We can make things. We could have a mindfulness session. You know, why not make a weekend?
Gosh, that sounds like an event developing there. Okay.
I've been sitting here thinking it's such a shame that Rod's so far north and I'm so far south. But if there's the opportunity of coming for a weekend, then it would definitely make it perhaps feasible. And if there's a bursary to help me do it as well, then yeah, you might regret that.
Yeah.
Can I ask actually, who's still remaining is South Wales based? Because I've picked up quite a few North Wales people, and I think 1 or 2 Mid Wales folk, but I'm having trouble IDing who else is down my neck of the woods.
We are
No pun intended.
quite west. We're southwest.
Where's that voice come from?
Sorry, Cara.
Cara. Yes, that's it.
Yeah, we're sort of South Ceredigion, southwest.
So yeah, more sort of mid south, southeast, but yeah.
I mean, what we do need is as Rod pointed out himself, he's swamped with demand, and what we need is multiple, woodland skill centres around Wales, don't we? Rod doesn't want to be alone. He wants there to be lots of other people doing it too. So it's how to help everyone to go in that direction.
3 years ago, the Royal Welsh Agricultural Society gave us a gold medal, and the judges' report said there should be a woodland skills centre in every authority. And when I went to the presentation, I said, can I just comment that the judges have got it completely wrong? There shouldn't be a centre like ours in every local authority area. There should be loads of centres like ours in every local authority. And when they did their next judging thing, they had actually changed it to several, from one, several. So, but it's RFS, Royal Welsh Agricultural Society, lots of people want to support it. And to get on with it.
It's difficult when they all. I can hear what's happening is that the people who are doing the prescribing, the authorities or the health sector, they have confidence in you because you've done it before. You're on their radar, and they're scared of putting their money or their reputation on the line by offering somebody else who's untried. And that's a challenge for you and for them, is to get away from, the usual suspects in a way.
I think that's where the training that Amy was talking about comes in. And I think also, and I just hadn't thought about this before, but during the course of this meeting, perhaps we should look at whether established centres could work with new centres to pilot some programs, and then if say we delivered something on somebody else's site just to get a toehold and then we withdrew, they could say, well, we've done it and we've got the contacts. I don't know. I just think that maybe we need to network more, support each other more, and not think of a model that has lots of independent, disconnected entities.
And there's something about the learning that Rod had in terms of building that relationship that meant that the commissioners, I think Mel's waving goodbye. Bye, Mel. I think building those relationships and getting that trust and how that was done, there's something, and us in our different areas identifying those key people and seeing, because it isn't one size fits all, is it? As Gwyneth was saying earlier about how social prescription works slightly differently in each area, and we know direct payment sits in different places in each area. So it's having those sort of learning from people who've already done it, but also thinking, well, how will that then map onto where we are, and who do we need to get to know in our area that we can make that work for the people we support and for our organisations? Because you know, the cooperative idea keeps coming back to me, the pooling of direct payments. That kind of model might work somewhere for someone, but it might not necessarily work somewhere else. So yeah.
I've got to go actually before 6, but I think that's a great idea, Judith. And I've just been communicating with Lucy in the chat about meeting to talk about direct payments. But I wonder whether it would be good to have a little working group more broadly looking at like the funding models that you have, Rod, but looking at all of these different funding ideas and anybody who's got intel kind of coming together to then try and you know, thrash it out a bit, because if with the direct payments Lucy has some knowledge, that means we as a network could then like promote that channel through the services that we're offering, and yeah, we could grow some of those things. And the same with Rod's work, you know, the contracts you have with health and social care, Rod, if we can use some of those templates or ideas, it might help build that model in other areas.
That sounds good. It sounds like maybe we need some kind of national council, you know, of green providers or something, some kind of steering committee nationally to hold that space, you know, the space for standards and the space for, like you say, new intel and how to make it work better.
Yeah. And just responding to Mike as well about developing something in Bethesda, I'll connect you with Melissa. So some of our groups run in Gwynedd, and Melissa's the Gwynedd project officer. So I'll put you two in touch, and she can explain what we're doing already, and you can talk to her about what you want to do, and hopefully there'll be some partnership working there.
Great.
You know, I think. Sorry.
Go on, Clara.
I was just saying, I think it is very much about kind of accessing, you know, kind of statutory service or whatever. You know, I'm on the framework of therapeutic services for POWIS, and I've recently had a contract for POWIS education. Now, obviously, that's in the school, but you know, I'm very keen, like, to take my provision out in the outdoors. Obviously, I'm a one-man person, and you know, whether I set up an, you know, to mean, obviously you're all organisations or CICs or whatever, but whether I can utilise, you know, to mean, use other people's services, you know, to be able to kind of offer that service, and like you were saying, you know, kind of once you have a service and you're recognised, you know, kind of that you've had referrals, then you, to mean, it becomes kind of like that known, isn't it? That they kind of, you know, the outcomes, and then you get, you know, continuous referrals and things like that. But it is, you know, I know in POWIS it was a huge undertaking for me to even be on the, you know, the therapeutic kind of framework. So.
If Clara and Mike, are you connected to community woodland groups? Because maybe that's also a step to take as well. You know, connect with your local woodland groups to see if they're, you know, we can connect you to see if they're interested in providing, but they don't have the skills, and you're interested in being a provider, then to try and help you work together somehow.
Yeah, definitely, that'd be great.
Mike, are you in contact with Jeff Ware in Blaenau Festiniog?
No, I'm not. Who is that, sorry?
Well, my Welsh is not good, but if you type in DREFWERDD.
Oh yeah, I've seen them.
Yeah, because they are actually sending 5 people on the wellbeing and nature training. So they're obviously quite. They've done all sorts of social support work, but not in the outdoors, and they want to take it outdoors now.
Oh, great, thanks. Yeah, I'll put that as a note as well to check out. Thanks. Too many leads to follow up on now.
What was the name of that group, Rod?
I know what you mean.
Blaenau Festiniog. Somebody else say it for me. Dref Ware.
Dref
Oh, Dref Werth. Okay. Yeah.
In Blaenau.
Yeah. Thank you.
Brilliant.
Just what we're talking about before, I was thinking about LS Wall Garden. There are commissioning agencies in Wrexham sending people to us in Denbighshire, and it would be interesting to have a conversation within ourselves about whether a way forward might be for Woodland Skills Centre to deliver some programs in the walled garden where we could take people from our established contacts and then we could back off, as it were, and just hope that all of that then transferred to a Wrexham provider rather than us.
That's a really good way forward, isn't it? And
Tracy, would you
deliver things?
You'd be able to speak to Libby about that, Tracy, then?
Definitely, yeah. In fact, funnily enough, before, because I only realised that I was going to be attending this webinar this afternoon when Libby said, would you like to join, and sent me the details. But I'd actually, prior to that, already spoken to Libby about you, Rod, and said, you know, contacts-wise, with the knowledge base that you have and all of the wealth of experience, you know, to grow. Because at ERLAS at the moment, and they do want to grow. I think it's just a case of knowing how. But yes, funnily enough, I had already suggested that you know, that you were the person to contact about that. So I'll have a chat with Libby tomorrow morning when I'm back in, and we'll go from there.
Well, that's great.
Really great resource. Like you say, I think, you know, with all the networks that, you know, everybody working together to deliver this stuff, it's got to have some weight. And I love the idea that you said about having some kind of committee or some kind of body. Yeah, that would be really useful to give it a bigger voice to get into some of these big institutions and stuff like that. I think it's very worthwhile investigating. But, yeah,
great.
Brilliant.
Put your email in the chat, Tracy. If we don't have it, if you're not signed up officially, we won't have your contact details.
Yeah, no, it was forwarded through Libby, so I'll put my.
So put it there now, and I'll whack it into the booking form.
Yeah,
so we've got you. If everybody wants to, bye, Amy. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Amy.
Thank you, Amy. Lovely to see you all. Thanks. That was a really interesting chat as well. And yeah, I'd love to talk more about the funding stuff. So maybe we can chat via email or something, Cara, and see what.
Yes. We could offer it out to everyone to see who wants to, you know, join a task group or something.
All right. Nice to see you again, Rod. And you, Judith. And
take care, Amy.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Amy. Bye. Thank you.
If everyone wants to save the chat, it's in the. If you go to the bottom right-hand corner, you can actually save. Save your chat. I should have said that earlier. There's 3 little dots if you're on a computer. Gives you the chance to save it.
Yep.
Anyway, I think any more points? Are everyone happy now? We've probably all time for another break. Run away to our dinners.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody, though. Really appreciate that.
Yeah, it was really good. Thanks so much for that.
Great. No, real pleasure. Thank you. And thanks, Rod, for staying till the end. The last speaker standing.
You have to mow some paddocks, of course, just like you do, isn't it? These kind of groups.
I'm going to jump in the tractor and drive off into the sunset. Yeah.
I could do that.
Oh.
That's good.